Developed independently by 4-Leaf Studios, Katawa Shoujo was released on January 4th, 2012. It is a PC game classified as a visual novel, a genre that never really achieved popularity here in the States but remains a powerhouse over in the land of the rising sun. Japanese artist Raita drew sketches of a concept he had, a dating sim which the player would pursue the affections of girls with various disabilities. The sketches were viewed by a group of 4chan users who took it upon themselves to form the aforementioned 4-Leaf Studios and bring the concept of these sketches to reality. The thought that most likely flows through your head upon hearing this game's concept is that this is a cripple girl fetish game. Only perverts and weeaboos would be into this. Don't listen to yourself, that couldn't be further from the truth. Hard to believe considering this is the product of 4chan users. I too was skeptical at first, but Katawa Shoujo broke a lot of my expectations, in more ways than one. Now, I hesitate to call this a game review, because I wouldn't necessarily call Katawa Shoujo a game. Apart from the odd clicking of the mouse, there really isn't any gameplay to speak of, as very common with this genre. It really plays up the title of visual novel, because it is, in fact, just like a book with visual aid. Plenty of pretty pictures to keep you company as you read through the pages upon text. Katawa Shoujo relies entirely on its writing to give you a story that engages you and characters to get attached to. My overview of the gameplay consists of 2 words. What gameplay? I'll be reviewing this more like a book, as this is much a work of literature. With that in mind, here's the plot. The story of Katawa Shoujo follows high school student Hisao Nakai. The plot kicks off with Hisao receiving a letter from a fellow student, a gal who proceeds to ask him out on a date. However, tragedy strikes as Hisao gets a heart attack and is hospitalized. Yeah, serious mood whiplash. Well, it's quickly revealed that Hisao has arrhythmia, a pretty nasty heart condition which has a whole Wikipedia article if you want to learn more. Now, because of this condition, which has kept itself contained until this point, it would prove to be very difficult to send him back to his old school. He is then recommended and admitted to Yamaku High School, a school which specializes in helping disabled children and serves as the main setting for the rest of the game. The game is split up into 4 acts. Act 1 is arguably the most engaging of the acts, as here is where you will be making the decisions that shape the rest of your time at Yamaku, namely which girl you will be enjoying your time with. Now I'll talk about each girl individually. We have the brash athletic amputee, Emi Ibarazaki, the shy and quiet burn victim, Hanako Ikezawa, peaceful, blind, tea-drinking Lily Sato, the best one, the domineering mistress of deafness, Shizune Hakamichi, and the mysterious armless artist, Rin Tezuka. Each of these girls have their own story path, all at varying lengths and varying content. Yeah, this is truly what makes Katawa Shoujo shine above its peers. The characterization. Each of the previously mentioned females are all written to near flawlessness. Their personalities are layered, almost never following to cookie-cutter stereotypes you'd expect from such a production. You'd expect 2 characters with hard-working personalities to get along, namely Shizune and Lily, but no. In fact, these 2 young women are bitter enemies and rivals due to their differing manifestos on what exactly is hard work. Some characters' personalities are rather easy to read and on occasion are even told to you, while others gradually require learning about to fully understand. Either way, every personality is distinct from one another. The dislike of a character would only stem not from the fault of bad writing, but because you just don't care for the personality displayed. This amount of depth makes the cast of Katawa Shoujo seem less like characters and more like human beings. There's a reason and a purpose behind their actions, even if it's not apparent by the first, second, or even 10th meeting. Every character is memorable. And this exquisite writing extends out to the secondary characters as well. Kenji, Yuko, Akira, and so on are given unique personalities to make it seem like we're not just playing a game, rather we are living life as Hisao. Perhaps that's good, because he doesn't seem to inhibit much character himself. But that's a subject for a few minutes later. When it comes to the writing of the story, or stories, the distinctness follows suit. No two story paths follow the same structure, and each girl truly feels like a different, exciting relationship. Wish real life were like that. While the scenarios don't have the same amazing writing as the characters themselves, you'd be hard-pressed to find an experience with this much emotion. The stories given almost always like to tug on your heartstrings, but not to the point where it seems like it was abusive about it, which is welcome for a game of this type. Most of the sadness stems from the fact that the conflicts in the majority of the story paths are very relatable, even if you've never experienced a disability in your life. You might find yourself teary-eyed while watching some of the scenes shown. I know I did. That brings me to the next point of the writing. You may have noticed that I've hardly brought up the fact that these girls are physically disabled. That's mostly due to the fact that it's hardly ever focused on in-game, which is surprising. The focal point of the conflicts is always on an emotional level, never about the disabilities themselves. There's no big issue regarding the fact that a character is blind and whatnot. I mean, sure, there might be a conversation or two about the disability, or it might be somewhat used as a method to tell the story, but it's never the focal point of it. The characters are able to function normally. The game's message seems to be how the disabled are just as much people as the non-disabled. Moments such as learning sign language to understand Shizune better, or running with Emi so she may help your condition, are a small example of this story's emotional weight. You're given choices, as mentioned, which will alter how the tale comes to an end. The different endings get your heartstrings pulling in different directions, depending on the one achieved. The superb presentation is topped off with this game's soundtrack. Blue123 and Nicole R. Murphy should be commended graciously for the work done on the incredible soundtrack. Mostly consisting of piano and guitar beats, the music has a surprising range of emotion and always enhances the mood it's in. From an upbeat, positive track like Hokabi to a sorrowful, distressed track like Breathlessly, the amount of emotions perfectly conveyed is admirable and worthy of note. It can be amazing how animated still frames with text can be made with this music. Each of the potential lovers and even a few side characters are given their own personal themes, which captures their spirit melodically almost without fault. There are a few awkward-sounding violins thrown here and there, but they are occasional in select tracks and never detract from the overall quality of the melody. Now, if the music is the icing, the artwork and animation are the figurative cherries atop the figurative cake. 2 cherries, that's how special this is. The artwork, especially considering the game's source, is quite pleasing and charming to the eye. You'd be amazed how quality a free indie project can be. The various emotions conveyed by them, coupled with the very mild motion and animation, makes for something a bit more than staring at static characters while reading text. The music helps out too. The occasional art pieces that appear are always enjoyable, and always fit the atmosphere perfectly, while also sporting some pretty impressive illustrations. All of this is well and fine, but it's accompanied by some particularly well-made full-motion videos, which play at the beginning of Act 2, for each character's respective route. While not entirely necessary, these animations set up the stage for their path perfectly, and offer a strong start to the stories. Seriously, these look better than most things on TV nowadays. Both the art pieces and animations can be viewed in the gallery and cinema respectively, although they must be unlocked first. Unfortunately, while all of this is remarkable, the first stumble Katawa Shoujo takes is with, funnily enough, the writing of a character. Its main character, the blank slate himself, Hisao Nakai. Good Lord Almighty, this guy is boring. He has no personality to speak of. His traits extend to he likes to read and I'm heart diseased. He shows the uncommon hint of a character, but it's so minute and lackluster that it just doesn't make up for his blandness. He only serves to describe what's going on and that's it. A mere player avatar, which is particularly out of place in such a narrative-based experience. When he's surrounded by such strong characters, his weak writing stands out even more than it already would have. This might have been acceptable in the first act, where we start out and perhaps the girl chosen molds his personality, but no! He develops little to no character throughout each route, always using the tell, don't show approach. This is where more choice would have really come in handy, allowing us to make the decisions and play him how we would act in a given situation. But the lack of choice strikes Katawa Shoujo hard when it comes to this important key character. I mean, either give us some flexibility with him, or give him some goddamn personality. Another minor thing I would like to point out is the obligatory sex scenes, sometimes unavoidable in this genre. Honestly, the game would have done better without them. They really add nothing but detract a little. They're all extremely awkward. Whether that was intentional or not is beyond of what I know, but they're unneeded and only push the game more into the detractor's vision of it. But I suppose if you're into that sort of thing, there you are. Otherwise, you can safely disable them in the options menu to keep a PG experience. Okay? Moving on. Now, while I said the story paths are well written, they do suffer the occasional hiccup. The plagues of bad writing, while not an epidemic, are still present in small pockets of Katawa Shoujo. This can vary from personal taste, but unless you're a fan of the type of character displayed, some of the stories can drag on a plot point for far too long and become objectively tedious. Other times, a cliched romance trope will be used to further the plot, or even worse, end it. While most of these instances of lesser writing are contained in smaller portions of the story, it's very apparent in a certain character's route, where there are so many opportunities to introduce a good conflict, it just never happens, opting for a less significant central conflict. It's by far the weakest route, rarely ever playing with your emotions, even for fans of the character. Let's hope you don't run into that one. Whatever it is, I'm not telling you. Good luck. Now, a real quick notice. This game received a bit of backdraft upon its release that is still permeating in some circles of the internet today. It seems Katawa has a literal translation from Japanese that would mean cripple. That means the fully translated title is Cripple Girl. Now I can see where you're coming from, but I assure you this is no exploitation game. This has a lot more to do with angel beats than it does rape play. 10 minutes of playtime will make it inherently obvious that this is not just a creepy fetish game. This is a story about acceptance, love, support, comfort, and moving on. And I'd hate to meet the person against all of those things. Back to the game. Well, in conclusion, these gripes hardly make the game unplayable. What it all boils down to is that Katawa Shoujo is a well-written, well-constructed visual novel, well worth a download if you're into a good read, with some minor faults. It's available for free on the official site, as well as some MP3s of the soundtrack. Even if you're skeptical, I still recommend giving it a read. I came across Katawa Shoujo last August, and I'm delighted to have read through it, not regretting a single tear-jerking moment I experienced. As a doubter coming into it, I can safely say I was more than just a little pleasantly surprised. So, anyone with an open mind and a little patience should give this one a shot. You might just be fond of what you find. Thanks for watching.